We are in this series, Change Your World. And the key concept in your message notes, we looked at this week 1, but I want to revisit it today, is this idea that God has not asked you to change the world. God has asked you to change your world. And there's a big difference between the two. When I look at the world today, it can feel overwhelming. If I look at all the problems, all the crime, all the war, all of the issues on planet Earth, something like 8 billion people on planet Earth, and you look at everything going on, you begin to feel overwhelmed and think, how in the world can I really make a difference with everything happening in the world today? Well, the truth is, God has not asked you to change the world. God's asked you to change your world, to take responsibility for the people around you. And if all of us will do something, we can't do everything, but all of us can do something. And if all of us would do something, we would make a difference in the world. Jesus gave us the Change Your World speech in Matthew chapter 5. And I just want to look at a couple parts of this that we looked at from week 1. In Matthew 5, he says, you're here. You're here. Why are you here? This is why you're here. This is your purpose. This is your mission. This is what God has called you to be and called you to do. You're here to be salt seasoning. I love that picture. Salt seasoning that brings out the God flavors of this earth. You're here to make it taste better. When you show up, it should be better. It should be more life-giving, more full of joy, more full of peace, more full of love, more full of hope, because you've arrived and the God of the impossible lives inside of you. So you're here to make it taste better, to bring out the God flavors of this earth. But if you lose your saltiness, how will people taste godliness? You've lost your usefulness and will end up in the garbage. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this. As public as a city on a hill. That's what it means to change your world. To be salt, to be light, to make it taste better, to make it brighter, to make it more colorful, to bring out the God flavors and the God colors of the world. So the title of the message today is How to Become a Catalyst for Change. How can you become a catalyst? How can you do your part to impact change in the world, to create positive change? Through your ideas, through your actions, through your influence, to truly make a difference in the world. And you can do it big and small. I think about Brian Tisher, one of our ushers here on the Go team here at Coastline. He had this idea not too long ago to be a catalyst for change, to impact through an idea how we do Sunday morning. You see, the old version of the way we did it is when you came in the door on Sunday, our ushers would put a piece of paper in your hand, message notes. And that was the goal. That was the focus. That was the assignment, is to get the notes in your hand. And Brian thought, you know what? We're so focused on getting notes in people's hands that we're not connecting to people. We're not welcoming them. We're not making them feel loved and welcome and appreciated for being here because we're focused on a task. So he said, what would happen if we put the message notes on the seats every Sunday morning so that at the door we could focus on just greeting people and welcoming people and making people feel human and valued. And I thought, what a catalyst for change. Brian, thank you. I know Brian's here today. Thank you for being a catalyst for change in our church. As I was praying about this morning, God took me back to my past. And so today is going to be a history lesson of your pastor, about a couple kids who decided to be a catalyst for change and build something called the Los Angeles Dream Center. And as I look back over our story and what God used us to do in the city of Los Angeles, which I'm going to tell you today, there were 7 things that we did that brought about change to the point now where building the original Dream Center in Los Angeles, California, back in 1995, we now have over 300 Dream Centers across the world. Because a couple kids who didn't have the experience, come on. Incredible. Because a couple kids who didn't have the experience, didn't have the education, didn't have the understanding, didn't have the know-how, didn't have the years of age on them, decided to be a catalyst for change in a community, and God did something bigger than them. God did something beyond them. And I'm going to tell you that story. You see, at 19 years old, I was in college in Phoenix, Arizona. And one of my classmates was a kid named Matthew Barnett, whose father led a church in Phoenix, Arizona that eventually brought me to Christ. A couple months after I got saved, his father said, I'm sending my son to Los Angeles to start a church in the middle of the inner city. Would you go and help? And not knowing what to do, I said, here I am, send me. And I volunteered, and we went to Los Angeles at 19 and 20 to build a church right in the middle of the inner city of Los Angeles. And it was a journey every step of the way. And as I reflect back on our journey and how God used us at 19 and 20 to do something significant in Los Angeles that now is impacting the world through hundreds of dream centers that have been launched as a result of that one dream center, there were 7 things that I saw God do in our life through this experience that we can all learn from so that each and every one of us can become a catalyst for change in our world. The first thing, number 1, in your message notes is open your eyes. Open your eyes. Change doesn't happen on its own. But change also doesn't happen unless you see the need. You've got to see what's going on around you if you're going to make a change. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is Matthew 14:14. It says, Jesus saw the huge crowd as he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them, and he healed their sick. There was an incredible miracle that took place that day as hundreds of people were healed by the compassionate touch of Jesus. But what I want to propose to you is that there would have never been a miracle that day if Jesus didn't first see the crowd. You see, he saw the crowd. He saw their brokenness. He saw the woundedness. He saw the hurt. He saw the pain. And that as a result of opening his eyes, he moved in compassion. Every single time Jesus moved in compassion, people got healed. People got set free. People got delivered. Lives were changed. But it all started with him seeing the crowd. Many of us don't see a difference made. We don't see the world change because we never see the need. We never open our eyes to what's going on in the life of a neighbor, in the life of a coworker. We're so consumed with our own needs and our own world and our own life that we don't see the pain and the hurt of the people all around us. And so we miss opportunities daily to move with compassion, to see people healed, see lives change, because we're so inward focused. We're so nearsighted that we can't see the world right in front of us. I look at the Dream Center in Los Angeles. Almost every ministry that we began in those early days of the Dream Center, none of them were great ideas we got in prayer meetings. It wasn't from, brilliant strategy sessions in a boardroom coming up with ideas to do ministry. It was seeing the need. We'd go out into the community and we would knock on doors and we would meet family and we would get to know people. And as we got into the lives and the families and the homes of the people in our community, we began to see what the needs actually were. And so instead of building ministries that were great ideas in a prayer meeting, we built ministries that actually met the needs of people. I remember a family we met our second year in Los Angeles, a family from Central America. All of their family and their kids and the children moved in from Central America, and they were brand new to America. And they came in, and all 8 of them were living in a little 1-bedroom studio flat in Los Angeles. And they didn't have food, and they didn't have furniture, and they didn't have enough clothing. And so immediately we realized we could start a food ministry. We could get donated food and bring it out to people who are hungry. We could start a clothing ministry for people that don't have enough clothes. We could get a furniture ministry growing and get mattresses and beds for people that are sleeping on floors. And some of the greatest ministries of the Dream Center were born because we saw the need of what was going on in our community. The second thing we had to learn, the second thing we had to do is change from good intentions to good actions. From good intentions to good actions. There's a difference between being compassionate and moving with compassion. You see, being compassionate describes how we feel. Moving with compassion describes what we do. It's not enough to cry for the needs of our city if we're not willing to do anything about it. See, for too long in the body of Christ, the world knows what we stand for. They know what we believe, but they don't see what we do. Because it's all words, it's not actions, it's not loving, it's not serving, it's believing all of this stuff, but it's not getting out there and getting our hands dirty as the New Testament church, as the body of Christ, and serving the needs of our community. It reminds me of the 5 frogs on a log. Have you ever heard this one? Let me ask you a math question today. I want to see who all my people who are good at math are. There are 5 frogs on a log. You see them, 5 frogs on a log. 4 frogs on the log decide to jump into the water. Here's the question. How many frogs are left on the log? Yell it out. 0, 5, 1. How many frogs are left on the log? 4 decide to jump in. 5 frogs are on the log. How many are left on the log? 5. Because deciding is not the same thing as doing. Right? How many of you decided to lose weight this year? How many know deciding is not the same thing as doing? We have lots of good intentions. You see, what we want in life is we want to judge other people by their actions, but we want them to judge us by our intentions. Good intentions are not the same thing as good actions. James 4:17, if anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. The word sin simply means to miss the mark. You're missing the mark. You're missing God's best for your life. If you know what's good and you're not doing it, you're missing God's best for your life. And here's the truth I've discovered about life. In life, you do exactly what you want to do. Listen to me carefully. In life, you do exactly what you want to do. No, Pastor, that's not true. I really want to read my Bible. No, you read your Bible as much as you want to read the Bible. See, the problem is you want other things more. And so you really don't want to read the Bible as much as you think you want to read the Bible because there's other things you want more. Well, I really want to lose weight. No, you've lost as much weight as you've really wanted to lose. I mean, let's just be honest with ourselves. Good intentions will not change the world. Good actions will change the world. We've got to move from the point of intending good things to actually doing good things, by taking a step of faith. Here's the third thing, and this is something I saw over and over and over in our years at the Dream Center in Los Angeles. Number 3, become a possibilist. Possibilist. Now, I know some of you English and grammar majors right now are just going into overload because you're like, that is a made-up word. That word does not exist. It's possible it exists. A possibilist. Steve Jobs said, the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are usually the ones who do. Because they believe in possibility. They're possibilist. Jesus said, with man, it's impossible. But guess what? With God, all things are possible. This is why one of the values of our church is expectation, is our posture. We're going to expect God to do big things here. We want to live our life and run our church and operate this place like the God who created the entire world with the Word is on our side. Because guess what? He is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all that we ask or even what we imagine. It's possible. It's possible. I was always taught by my pastor that if there's not one way to do the job, there's 5 other ways to get it done. So don't accept failure. Don't accept it's not possible. There's always a way to do it. There's always a possibility if you will look for it. When we first came to Los Angeles, we took A little bitty church in the middle of the inner city. The pastor before our time was 80 years old, beautiful Filipino man, Gus Gabriel. 80-year-old pastor. They had 40 people in the church. They turned the church over to us. Our senior pastor was 20 years old at the time. I was 19 at the time. And in 3 months, this little bitty church in the inner city of Los Angeles grew from 40 people all the way to 17. It wasn't church growth, it was church reduction. They didn't know what to do with these young leaders. They didn't know what to do. We realized right away if we were going to make a difference in Los Angeles, it was going to have to be more than Sunday morning. Sunday morning simply wasn't enough for people who were living in pain every day of the week. We had to have a church that was 24/7, that was open every day of the week, serving the needs of the community. And so we found this abandoned hospital in Los Angeles, the Dream Center. Have them put that photo up again for me, Dave. This abandoned hospital, right? There's, by the way, there's a picture of Aaron, the youth pastor, when I'd only been saved 9 months. It was the dumbest decision they ever made. But I was the very first youth pastor at the Dream Center. So this old abandoned hospital, it was owned by a group of Catholic nuns, the Franciscan nuns. They wanted $16 million for the property. Today, it's probably worth over $50 million for this city block, 9 buildings, 400,000 square feet. The largest building is 15 stories tall, right in downtown Los Angeles. One of the Hollywood studios was using the building to film movies, and they offered the Catholic nuns $10 million to buy it and turn it into a film set. We met with a group of nuns, and we shared the vision of what we wanted to do in Los Angeles, how we wanted to help people and serve people and make a difference in the lives of people. And they thought, this keeps it true to the original vision of helping the people of our community. And they wanted to sell it to us. The only problem was, at this time, is like a year later, our church now had about 80 people coming to church every Sunday. They were all homeless, and the only reason they came is because we bought pizza after Sunday. We had about $30,000 in the bank. Everything looked impossible. There's no way possible we could pull this off. My pastor's father, Tommy Barnett from Phoenix, he wanted to kind of get us off his back. And so he threw out the most ridiculous offer you could possibly imagine to this group of Catholic nuns, thinking they would turn us down and he could kind of move on with his life and not have to worry about these crazy ideas his kids were coming up with. So he offered them $3.9 million. For a 400,000 square foot facility in downtown Los Angeles. To our shock and surprise, they said yes. But the only catch was we had to give them a down payment of $500,000 in 30 days. Then they would let us move in and give us 18 months to pay off the additional $3.4 million. Well, we didn't have $500,000, but we did have 30 days, so we thought this must be God. We'll do it. Not knowing how it would happen, people all over America began to send money to support us and help us. We came up with the $500,000. We were able to move in. Within a year, we had close to 400 or 500 people living in the Dream Center that we brought in from gangs and drugs and homelessness and crime and prostitution. We got towards the end of the 18 months, and we were still $2 million short. We had 3 weeks left to come up with $2 million, or all these people we had rescued, all these people that we had brought in off the street would be turned back to the street. There was a man from Phoenix who was on the board at the church in Phoenix that sent us to Los Angeles, and he was totally against this vision. He hated Los Angeles. He looked at Los Angeles as the reason for his high taxes and all the problems in America. But he called our pastor and said, "Can I come out and see what you guys have done?" And honestly, we didn't want him there because he was critical and he was negative, and we just didn't want him discouraging the vision. But he flew out, and we showed him around the property. At the end of it, he began to cry. He said, "I should have never tried to stop you. God is in this thing." And he pulled out his checkbook and he wrote $1 million check. And then he said, "My son, he wants to come out. He's running the company now. Can he come out next week and see it?" His son came out. God touched his heart. He wrote $1 million check. $2 million came in the very last week before the deadline. You see, we joke with people. Some people believe in miracles. We depended on them. We had to learn to be possibilists. All things are possible with God. Number 4, take ownership. Take ownership. This is why we say God's not asking you to change the world. He's asking you to change your world. We've got a number of Navy SEALs in our church. I was talking to one of them this week who was on the team with Jocko, and he's part of Jocko's leadership coaching. And he wrote this for me in a text. He said, extreme ownership means that I am responsible for everything in my world, up and down the chain of command, to the left and to the right. And the moment that I start blaming anyone or anything else, I am failing at extreme ownership. But notice that I said everything in my world, not everything in the world. I can't control what some terrorist organization does in a foreign land. I can't control if a drunk driver runs a red light and T-bones me while I'm driving through an intersection, but I can control how I plan and how I prepare and how I respond. In other words, he's saying, I will not be a victim. I will take ownership for what I can take ownership of. When we came to Los Angeles, we realized we can't reach the entire city of Los Angeles. It was too big. There were too many neighborhoods, there were too many people, there was too much crime, there was too much problems. We couldn't reach it all, but we made a decision that first year. We may not be able to reach the entire city, but we can reach these 2 blocks right in front of our church. And so we began a program called Adopt a Block. And every Saturday morning, we would go to the 2 blocks right in front of the church, and we would knock on the doors, and we would serve the families, and we'd bring out food and bring out clothing, and we would care for the community and love the people. We realized we couldn't make a difference in the entire city, but we could make a difference in those 2 blocks. And those 2 blocks grew to 4 blocks, and then it grew to 6 blocks, and it grew to 10 blocks, and it grew to 20 blocks, to the point where within a couple years, we were going out to 80 different blocks every Saturday morning with about 300 to 400 volunteers serving and loving the community. To the point that the mayor of Los Angeles, in our first 5 years, we were in one of the most dangerous gang war zones in all of LA, said the homicide rate in this community has dropped 73% as a result of the work of the Dream Center. We couldn't change it all, but we could do something. We could take ownership. The key, though, is you got to get rid of a victim mentality. We live in a victim culture, don't we? Everyone's a victim. It's nobody's fault. We don't call it sin anymore. We call it disorders and sickness and disease instead of just taking ownership. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is Judges chapter 12. The Ammonites were coming to attack. And Jephthah, one of the greatest leaders in the Bible, a leader that was the unlikely one. He was the son of a prostitute. His brothers wanted nothing to do with him, and he was an outcast to his family. And they threw him away. And the Ammonites are coming in to destroy his entire area, and none of the tribes will help him. None of the people will help him. And look what he says. When I saw that you wouldn't help, I took my life in my hands. I took responsibility. I took extreme ownership, and I crossed over to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord gave me victory over them. Successful people in life aren't the ones who had easy circumstances. You see, in fact, most successful people went through the most difficult circumstances you can imagine. We go through hard things to be able to go through hard things. Life's not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. This attitude that I'm going to go through the hard things now so I can have easy things later is delusional. We go through hard things today so that we can go through harder things tomorrow. Because the world we live in is tough. And we can't be victims. We got to do something. And sometimes you got to take your life in your hand. I remember when I first became a Christian, I got saved with about 10 other guys who were my age. We're all friends and connected together. We all found Christ around the same time frame. And they started getting asked to do all sorts of things in ministry, youth pastor and worship pastor. And they had these talents and they had these gifts and musical abilities that I had nothing. In fact, they actually told me after I first got saved, you're probably never going to make it in stage ministry. You're not really a preacher. You can't really teach. You may just need to focus on being behind the scenes. And so I said, look, I may not be able to preach, but I can clean a bathroom better than anyone. I'll clean them any day of the week. When I first came to Los Angeles to help them build the Dream Center, they honestly thought I was going to wash out. They wouldn't even give me a room. I slept in hallways for 3 months, piled up with trash. Kept all of my clothes in the trunk of my car. We had one shower that dripped ice cold water. All of the food in our cafeteria was donated. I remember we got 2 semi-trucks of banana ones one time. We had every type of banana dish you can possibly imagine for weeks. They didn't think I was going to make it. So they gave me all the jobs nobody else wanted to do. I remember one of my first jobs at the Dream Center, because it was an old hospital, was to clean the blood off of the old morgue. I mean, for 3 days, scrubbing these walls, getting it clean. You see, what I had was work ethic. I said, I may not have the talent, I may not have the gift, I may not have the ability, the opportunities, but I will outwork anybody. I'll clean a bathroom better than anyone. I'll set up chairs in an old gymnasium better than anyone. And so about 9 months in, they came to me because they were looking for a youth pastor, and they couldn't find a youth pastor because there were no youth in the church. There were no parents in the church. But they said, we can't find a good youth pastor, but everything we've given Aaron to do, he works with all of his heart to get it done. So they made me the youth pastor. Again, we didn't have any teenagers. The only teenagers I could find were gang members. So every afternoon when they would be out on the streets, I'd go out and play football with them every afternoon. That's how we built our youth ministry, playing football with gang members in the street. But I had to make a decision. I wasn't going to be a victim. They told me I was unlikely. They told me I couldn't do it. They told me I didn't have the gift or the talent. I wasn't going to stay down. I was going to take ownership for what I could take ownership of. Here's number 5. Invite others to join the cause. You can't do it alone. None of us are going to be self-made doing anything great for God. We need other people. God rigged it that way. Ecclesiastes 4 says 2 can accomplish more than twice as much as one, and it's true. Look at what we've accomplished in Mexico as a church family. It's not because of one person. Marsh Moore had a dream, and he had an idea, and he had a vision, and he began to lead teams to Mexico. Not himself, teams to Mexico. And then there was Dave Barth and Jim Grant, now Brett and Dennis, and all of these men and women that have committed time and energy to come together as a team to serve orphans and children and communities down there because they realized they couldn't do it on their own. But twice as much can be done when we join together. Invite other people to join the cause. Here's number 6. I'm running out of time, so I need to get through this one. Do something. This one's important. Do something. Do something. It's pretty simple. Do something. Do what? I don't know. Anything. Do something. Remember the parable of the talents? The one guy went and hid the money, and the master called him wicked and lazy because he didn't do anything. The master would have been happier if he lost his money, because at least he did something with it. But instead he was afraid and he hid it and he didn't do anything with what he had been given. Do something. See, I think the challenge for many of us is we're looking for this big thing we're supposed to do. And there's really not a big thing out there. It's a little thing. It's just to do something. It's a little thing every day that turns into a big thing. I think about Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was one of my heroes. She was one of the greatest women to ever live. Made one of the biggest differences in the world that we've ever known. I've read her biographies. I've read her stories. She was a hero of ours at the Dream Center, what she did in the slums of Calcutta. Do you know what I've discovered about Mother Teresa? Reading all of her biographies, all of her books, I could not find one great thing she ever did. Not one big thing. So how did Mother Teresa become one of the greatest women to ever live when she never did anything big? She did little things every single day with a whole lot of love. And the little things over time created an incredible life. You look at the Dream Center in Los Angeles, we never did anything big. We did little things every day. Going out to the street with some food, going out to Hollywood Boulevard, going into the projects for the children, knocking on doors, bringing out clothing. It was little things every single day, compounded over time. and became something great. I love Esther. In chapter 4, her uncle Mordecai, because some evil people convinced the king to kill all of the Jewish people. And Esther had an opportunity to make a difference, to be a catalyst for change. And her uncle said to her, if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. God's going to get the job done. Can I tell you, it's so much better when you let him use you. Like, he's going to get the job done. But wouldn't you rather let him use you? Wouldn't you rather be in the game, on the field, doing something? And who knows, but you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. I believe that every person here will have a for such a time as this moment in your life, where God's going to give you an opportunity, a moment to literally change the world, to do something that's going to impact history in such a significant way. You will have that opportunity in your life. I promise you that. But here's what I also believe. I don't think most of us will know when that time is or when that time came until we get to heaven. You're going to be in heaven one day, and God's going to begin to play the story of your life. And he's going to say, do you remember that time when you went down on Saturday morning with the Coastline Dream Center to Mexico? And you were working in the children's home. There was that kid that was just kind of off in the corner, and he was just going through something, and the Holy Spirit touched your heart, and you knew he needed a little extra love, and so you just went over and gave a little extra of yourself to love on him and encourage him. I know you couldn't see it that day, but let me begin to show you what happened. Let me show you what that meant to him. Let me show you how it changed the way he saw himself. It changed the way he believed about himself. And he went on to change the world. And he looks back at that day, at that moment, that encouragement as the moment that changed his life. You're not going to know that till you get to heaven. That's why we've got to be faithful every day. That's why we've got to do something every day. We've got to love people every day. We've got to serve people every day, because we don't know when that moment comes. About 5 years ago, I was in Sweden preaching at a youth conference. And at the conference was one of the leading youth pastors in all of the country, doing one of the most incredible works for God you've ever seen. I mean, hundreds of teenagers have been saved through his ministry. He's leading youth movements across his nation, impacting cities and teenagers. 28 years old. After the meeting was over that night, we were in the back, and he was talking to me. He goes, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I said, I don't know if we've ever met. He said, "I was 12 years old. You were here in Sweden. It was a youth camp. I was a 12-year-old boy. My family was not believers. And I came to the altar that night, and I gave my life to Christ. And after you got done preaching, you were praying at the altar, and you came down and you looked at me in the eye, and you saw greatness in me. And you just told me, as a 12-year-old boy, you're going to change the world. You're going to do something incredible with your life. You're going to lead hundreds of teenagers to Christ." He goes, "That day changed my life. You spoke something inside of me that God began to build." He goes, "I'm doing what I'm doing today because of that moment." Maybe that was my for such a time as this moment. And then finally, number 7. After you've done something, trust Jesus. Because it's all up to him. It's not up to you. You do your part, and you trust him to do his part. I can't do the supernatural. He will not do what only I can do, and I cannot do what only he can do. There's a divine partnership. God says, "I want you to go, and then I'll be with you." So you go and you do your part, and then I'll do my part. And working together, the natural and the supernatural will make a significant difference in this world. So do everything you can do, and then trust me. Proverbs 16:3, commit your actions to the Lord, and your plans will succeed. Do it for Him. Let Him guide you. And watch what can happen.